Welcome back, everyone. POW Ponder on Weather here. Happy Friday and St. Patrick's Day out there. I've actually got my green on, and it's my wife and I's 20th dating anniversary. Started dating on St. Patrick's Day. But man, I appreciate every one of you out there that tuned in to live severe weather coverage last night across Oklahoma and Texas, and really left a mark with a lot of large hail in its path. And here's some pictures. There's the size of a quarter, so that is easily 2 inches or greater hailstones that fell out of the sky. And there's a golf ball, and that was easily a greater than golf ball size hail, just a bucket full of golf balls and tennis ball type size hail, including some of the largest amounts were upwards to 3 inches. A lot of damage. In fact, look at some of the hail swaths where the hail actually formed. We had a supercell that originated in southern Oklahoma, and it traversed across eastbound through the late afternoon time frame. But we had another strong supercell that formed down there to Breckenridge that also went across portions of Fort Worth into Dallas and went into East Texas. And then we had some storms even into the overnight hours that went across into East Texas all the way down into Central Texas, where Austin in fact had some hail reported last night. But here's the temperatures, because we had a strong cold front that came behind that system, and that's some pretty cold air for March standards, and there's plenty more going to be on the table over the next several days as those temperatures continue to pummel down from the north and encompass a good part of the U.S. with well below average temperatures going forward. In fact, there's a lot of dry air behind that system. So that's a good thing about strong cold fronts. It kind of clears the atmosphere out, even though we had a lot of instability happening yesterday. It's really good out there today with a lot of clear skies. You can tell that by the lower dew points. Not much moisture in the air across a good part of the central U.S., where it's still in the warm sectors down here into the southeast, where they are expecting a couple of storms that could be on the strong to severe side, well to the south in portions of New Orleans, down here in Mobile, places into Pensacola. We'll have to be on the lookout later on this afternoon for some stronger storms. In fact, let's take a look at that cold front, because man, it plunged all the way down into Mexico. You don't really see that often this time of year, because that cold front definitely meant business, and it brought some snow into places they typically really don't see that much snow in portions of southern New Mexico here and far west Texas. And here, this is the Pecos area, the Alpine area. Those areas are expecting some snow over the next couple of days. In fact, there's actually even some snow going to be expected into Mexico, believe it or not. But there's the instability across a good part portions of well to the south into the Mobile area, into New Orleans, where they have to expect some stronger storms today as those rain showers push off the east coast. And then we're dealing with some snow up here in a good part of Minnesota again, up into Wisconsin, and then a really elevated with some heavier snows across the UP of Michigan. But look at the temperatures as we wake up till tomorrow morning. A lot of these areas are well below freezing. In fact, you're below zero up here into the Dakotas, back into the single digit, pushing all the way south is into Nebraska here. But those 20s reach into Oklahoma, as well as into a good part of Arkansas, as well as that colder air continues to plunge. It finally actually reaches parts of the southeast with below average, below freezing temperatures going through into the Tennessee Valley. But it just gets colder as we go through Sunday morning, because we have another reinforcing shot of colder air. So we have some instability that's going to come off the west coast again, but for the most part, behind these cold fronts, you can see it's pretty clear sky. So a lot of these areas are experiencing some really nice conditions out there. There's not much happening, at least for the next couple of days. It's far into the exterior regions where it is going to be busy, is actually out there in West Texas, where the snow continues to fly. And also well to the south here into the deep south, the Texas, into the Rio Grande Valley, where they're desperately needing some rain showers. So that's definitely a welcome sight. And that rain instability will push off the East Coast back into Florida and across the coastal regions, where that snowstorm will be continuing to fly into portions of the upper peninsula of Michigan here, all through Michigan, and as well as into portions of Toronto here, and well into the northern parts of New England. But there's the cold front that continues to plunge with that reinforcing shot of colder air on Sunday. So a lot of areas that may have planted early, that may have just hoped that it's not going to get this cold, again. Unfortunately, you're going to have to bring in the plants and protect them, because there's definitely going to be some colder temperatures, even filtering in further south than what you saw on Saturday, with those colder temperatures all the way into the middle parts of Mississippi. Seeing those freezing temperatures actually on this would be the last official day of winter before spring starts on the 20th. And on that, as we go into that Sunday time frame, again, that reinforcing shot continues to push further south, bringing in that cold air, but then also the drier conditions as well. So again, much of the country, you're not expecting much of instability onto the day on Sunday. It's just going to be a nice day to get out and about and do things. Where they are going to have a little bit of instability is across the West Coast into portions of Washington and Oregon, as well as into California, with some more rain for them. They've been seeing a lot of it, and they're going to be adding to those totals, which you've seen really over the last 3 months. It's just been inundated, one system after another. But there's the colder temperatures as we get into Monday. It continues to hang on. In fact, it pushes a little bit further off into the southeast, all those areas and portions of into the northeast, well into the 20s, if not into the teens. In fact, some of these areas could pick up some record low minimums in places of eastern Kentucky. 22 degrees for them. That's definitely cold. That's definitely some cold stuff. We got a record cold temperature back into portions of central Mississippi there, 26 degrees for the first day of spring. That is definitely cold, and you're going to feel it. So a lot of these areas, you're definitely going to have to cover and protect the plants as the winter, ends with a kind of a last hurrah, with a good part of the country experiencing well below average temperatures. And again, there's the snow over the next 48 hours, and again, there's places that just don't see that much snow. In fact, look at all the snow happening in Mexico, folks. That's some mountain regions out there, and it's cold enough. You mix in that cold front plunging all the way to Mexico, and you have a disturbance that's coming in from the west. Yeah, it's not out of the question. You're going to get snow in that type of atmosphere, even in Mexico. So they are going to be experiencing that snowflakes to fly down there. While that snowstorm up there into the upper peninsula will be starting to wind down, but definitely leaving a mark with some heavier totals, especially across the upper PA, with 12 to 18 inch totals is definitely not out of the question. But there's the overall view of the next 5 days, with plenty of cold air plunging well into a good part of the U.S. It's going to be experiencing well below average temperatures, with that blocking mechanism setting up over the top that lowers the pressures underneath, and that puts the colder air kind of locked into these areas with just these reinforcing shots of colder waves. I call them impulses, that come down and push further off into the south and reaching all the way into the coast as well. But what the significant change is, we're going to have another fairly significant atmospheric river. But overall, here's the next 5 days as far as the temperatures on the anomalies. Pretty impressive. This is definitely pretty impressive for March standards, with again 20 below average temperatures. Is kind of hard to do for so far south, but that's exactly what's going to happen, as basically most of the country will be definitely below average for essentially your third week of March standards. But there's the atmospheric river as the evolution changes of the dynamics in the atmosphere into the Pacific, where these waters really start to warm up even more. It's been a dramatic change over the last month or two, and we see another formidable system coming in off the west coast. But look how far south it is, guys. That's well south into Southern California, back into the Baja of California, reaching into the desert southwest of Arizona into Mexico. And that's going to bring more instability and more heavier rain, with a significant trough that really starts to dig back into the picture heading into Tuesday night, with another formidable system that's going to be reaching the coast. And this system really starts to dig pretty far south. Look how far south it goes. It takes us going on spring break in the Baja of California. That's where it's going with that formidable low pressure center really digging. And the further it digs, the more energy it's going to be able to tap into from the Pacific once it swings across into the central US. So it's going to wring out a lot of precipitation over portions of California, across the desert Southwest, and the northern sections. It's still going to be snowing, guys. I know it's the third week of March by then, but it's still cold enough, and we're still talking snow as winter just tries not to go away, especially into those western areas of the US. But what's significant going into the middle of next week that we really have to be concerned about as the atmosphere rapidly changes again. So winds are going to be turning around by Tuesday as that storm system will be approaching the west coast. Then Wednesday and then Thursday, check out the dew point. South wind, these dew points surge all the way into Oklahoma, Missouri, and into northern Illinois. That's pretty concerning with the 60-degree dew point all the way into northern Illinois. That gives you an idea of where the possibility of the instability could be, tapping into that deep upper level trough ejection that's going to be coming in from the west coast. And that spells trouble for some more severe storms, unfortunately, across portions of the southern plains with a significant dip in the trough. This is even more amplified than the one we just experienced. So this has the capability to, in fact, even be stronger than the one that we had just last night. So sometimes we get into these 7-day cycles, and that's exactly what it looks like we're going into, with the possibility of the formation of severe weather trying to form and come back in the picture across the southern plains, with those elevated dew points surging well to the north. They really start to surge, getting all the way up into upper portions of Illinois, and that's where the severe threat pushes. So this could be a widespread event across a good part of the southern plains, across the Missouri Valley here, and through all the way up into the Ohio, into Illinois, and even parts of maybe Wisconsin. So instead of talking snow, we could be even talking some marginal severe thunderstorms by the time we head into your possibly Thursday, afternoon time frame. We'll obviously be fine-tuning this as we get closer, and this will push off into the East Coast and probably maybe sticking together. So we might have a multi-day event that we might be having to track and be concerned about as we get into the middle and head towards the end of next week. But then there's the temperatures going forward. So beyond Tuesday, the colder air relaxes in much of the central and eastern 2/3 of the US, where you're basically just kind of returned back to normal standards, while the colder air continues to pummel in off the west with well below average temperatures. Is in this for a good part, really all winter technically, but especially for most of the part of March, especially Nevada here is probably at least in the top 10, going to be in the top 10 coldest, if not the top 5 of the coldest Marches on record, because they've just been seeing day after day after day of well below average temperatures. So, but here's the win. We're going into severe weather season, more amplified severe weather season. We've had an active January. We had an active February. We're starting off with a fairly decent active, March. And unfortunately, it looks to really start to ramp up. It starts to really start to ramp up, as well as the wind. So we're going actually into a good part of the windiest time of this through this third week of March. Here's some of the winds are going to be unfolding across next week. But going into April, a lot of areas April is kind of your windiest month out there. So do expect a lot of wind advisories, and just going to be a lot of wind, going forward, at least for the next 6 weeks. But here's the precipitation, and the difference of the placement of the above average precipitation is fairly significant because of the change in the ocean temperatures out there in the Pacific, especially these troughs digging further and further south. As the La Nina went bye-bye, we're heading into a neutral, and we're really ramping up and heading to an El Nino. And so those above average precipitation anomalies pushes back into California, it pushes back into Nevada, Utah, the deserts, the Four Corners regions, even into Mexico. That's where the snow is going to be flying. Down here in the deep south of Texas, these are areas that have been in a desperate drought for a long, long time. good to see the weather finally changing for them. To see some of these, you know, rains coming back in the picture. And this is where we have to be concerned about the severe weather across the east of the I-35 corridor, probably eastern Oklahoma, and going through Arkansas, Missouri, all the way up into Illinois and to Indiana. So we'll be fine-tuning this event as we get closer to next week. So I appreciate you guys watching. Do like this video, definitely hit the subscribe button, and catch me next update where I protect you for and after storm.